It's often exciting to look to the future of UNO, what it might be like in times to come. Sometimes, though, it's important to stop and take a good look at the past of the university, the people and the happenings that help make the excitement of future history possible. With this in mind, join me for Reflections in Time. It's the summer of 1984, and we're here in one of the newer rooms in the Health, Physical Education and Recreation building, a part of our Hyper building, as we call it, a part of our College of Education. And we're doing what we've done for many months and years now, off and on, what we call Reflections in Time. And what I've asked people to do is to talk about their time at the university, why they came, a little about them, to sort of preserve the record for us and our children and for the years ahead of our university and the people that have helped make it what it is. And my guest on today's program, to visit very informally for an hour or so, is Paul Kennedy, who came about the same time as I did, in the middle 50s. He's been a part of our scene here at the university, a part of public education, as a part of the Board of Education, and a variety of other things for many, many years. Paul, it's real nice to have you, and so let's just visit. And I've known you for a long time, 25 and more years, certainly. But I don't know that I've ever really asked you about your roots, really where you hail from. I know it's south of here somewhere, Oklahoma or Kansas or somewhere down there. And then the progression of time and family that brought you and your good wife Martha and children here to Omaha.
Well, I was born in Browntown, Kansas, which was an oil field town. And
south
of and east of Wichita.
Oh yeah.
The oil boom had moved up from Oklahoma into southern Kansas, and my father was in the oil business. And I grew up in Kansas, went to school at El Dorado, and then when the oil boom moved to western Kansas, we moved to Plainville, out by Great Bend, and so I grew up in the oil fields.
What kind of involvement did your dad have? That's kind of interesting. What did he do?
Well, he was what they called superintendent, a farm boss. And in the oil business, they transplanted a lot of the terms from plantations to the oil business, because as they developed the vocabulary for the oil business, they used terms like roustabout and swamper and head roustabout. And
those all go back to
farm boss. They go back to plantation days. And there were a lot of similarities in it, actually. In the oil business, companies very frequently treated the employees the same way that plantation owners had treated employees.
Sort of like slaves, huh?
Plantations.
Yeah.
But then I was in Oklahoma for a while because during WW2, my wife, folks lived in Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
You finally got into a town big enough so I've heard of it.
So she went down there for the time that I was in the service and taken the Eisenhower guided tour.
Oh, yeah. And, were you in the Army?
Yeah. And
Europe and that sort of thing?
Yeah, Europe.
How come we didn't run into each other?
Well, I spent most of my time in the infantry.
Oh, did you?
And all my time in the infantry. And when I came back, rather than move back to Kansas,
you had a wife then? Did you have your college education?
Yeah, I'd finished college before I went in the service.
I see.
And I decided to try whether or not I'd go back into teaching or go to work for an oil company. Because City Service and Phillips Petroleum are both headquartered in Bartlesville, and I'd had job offers from both of them when I came out of the service. And
that's interesting. What kind of jobs did they offer you?
Well, I had been offered the superintendent's job or a farm boss job, like my dad.
Did you have any background other than coming from a family?
Well, I'd worked in the
You did work
all the way
younger.
through school.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And I took a $100 a month teaching job instead of a $200 a month oil field job. So
when did you have this problem with your head? That was interesting. Why'd you do that, Paul? That's interesting.
Well, that's what Jack Smith said. He said, anybody that's that damn dumb, I'm not sure we want him working for us. But anyway, that difference in salaries for educators and other people has been with us for...
Has held up pretty well.
40 years.
Yeah.
And I went back into teaching at Dewey, Oklahoma. And
well, you say back into teaching.
I
missed
taught
that.
1 year.
What?
Between college and the service, I'd taught 1 year.
To some school
At
in
Nest City, Kansas. I don't know if you know where that is.
That's a biggie.
It was a good job.
Yeah. Were you
football coach?
Oh, you're coaching then too. I know you'd done some
coaching and teaching, and I enjoyed it. And when I came out of the service, then after 3 years in the Army, we decided that I'd try teaching. So I taught in Oklahoma a couple of years.
You know, before you continue that story of time there and teaching, why did you make that decision? Can you remember? The money certainly was better in the oil fields. You come out of that background.
Yeah.
What caused you to do that?
There were several things, and some of them aren't particularly complimentary to the oil field business.
Yeah.
It's a rough life. A lot of the times, the person has to be away from the family. At that time, there was a tremendous amount of boozing and fighting, and I don't mean fist fighting. I mean fighting with broken bottles and that kind of stuff.
Rough and tumble kind of life.
It was a rough life, and I really didn't care about it. And I'd always wanted to get into education and teaching. I suspect the coaching aspect of it was very attractive because I'd enjoyed athletics, and so money wasn't that important because I didn't have that much of it. So it really didn't. And nobody needed it anybody else.
So you didn't feel alone.
It didn't really bother me that much.
No.
But I was happy to get into education.
Did you get back into a job that let you coach then?
Oh yeah. I got into too much coaching. In Oklahoma, you know, in spring ball, they have 6 weeks of spring football down there.
They take their football very seriously, don't they?
I OD'd on football at Dewey.
Is that right?
And we got into the playoffs and played up till between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then started the 1st of March with football and played 4 games.
It's like a full-time job almost.
It was.
But you were teaching too, I suppose.
Oh yeah, but still the football is what determines how successful the teacher is.
Yeah, that takes first place with a lot of the alumni at the high school as well as the college level, right? Yeah. So, you were in Oklahoma now?
Yeah, and then I decided to go back and get a master's degree, so I went back to Fort Hays, where I'd graduated with my bachelor's degree. And while I was there that summer, I talked with a person who was the superintendent at La Crosse, Kansas, and he was looking for a coach and a teacher, and I had the English as a teaching field, which was somewhat different from a lot of people. At that time, English and coaching was not a frequent combination.
It's kind of unusual.
Yeah. So I got the job at La Crosse, Kansas, and Martha and the boys moved up, and so we spent the next 3 years in La Crosse, and then I was at Phillipsburg, and then at Otis, and then I went back for my year of residence on my doctorate.
Now, during all this time, you were teaching, coaching, and working on your PhD.
Yeah.
Where were you working on the doctorate at?
At the University of Kansas.
Well, you kept a busy
There was a guy, there was a guy named John Twinney who was my major advisor. He had been out to La Crosse doing some survey work for the school district, and a great person. I modeled a lot of my behavior after him, and I hope I modeled a lot of it from him. He was very honest. Didn't go for a lot of BS crap that you get when you get into a lot of the higher education activities.
So he's sort of one of the models that kept you rolling. And
and encouraged me to come on, get the doctorate.
And I imagine you worked on to get the doctorate with something fairly definite in mind. You didn't intend to stay in high school work all your life?
No, I'd intended to go back into superintendency, and then he asked me why, and I said, well, eventually I want to go into college teaching.
Hold it, wait a minute. When were you superintendent? We missed that.
Well, I was superintendent at Otis, Kansas for 3 years.
Along with coaching?
No, I didn't have any
You didn't have to coach
there.
then?
No, no. No, that was, and then I had been high school principal at Phillipsburg, where Kirk Naylor was superintendent.
Yes.
So Kirk and I had...
That's where you first got to know each other, right?
Yeah, I got acquainted with Kirk in 1951, I guess it was, 50-51. And then he went back to get his doctorate, and left Phillipsburg, and I went down to Otis to be superintendent there. And so for 3 years we were there, and then I did the year of residence at KU.
Mm-hmm. How'd you hear about us up here, University of Omaha?
Well, when I got ready to finish down there with my doctorate, I was planning to go back and get a superintendency.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some job openings at that time. One of them was out at North Platte, and one of them was at Hiawatha, Kansas, and they were, you know, attractive-looking jobs at that time. But then Doc Twinney asked me, what do you want to do eventually? I said, I want to get into college teaching. He said, why don't you do that now? And I said, well, I don't know that I have enough experience. And I think at that time we may have put more emphasis on experience than we do presently.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounded to me like you had quite a bit with all those years of teaching and
yeah, but I had only 5
work.
years of administrative work, and I thought I needed more. But he said, you got more now than you need. And so he said, there's a job opening up at Omaha U. And I said, what do you know about it? He said, well, they're going and growing. And he said, if you get in there, that'd be a good job for you. So I made application and received a letter from Dr. Bale inviting me to come up for an interview. I drove up by myself and arrived in Omaha at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon or something like that, and I was coming west on Dodge Street.
Two-lane Dodge Street, then.
No, it was too many lanes for this country boy.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, I'll never, ever live in this town. And I made a left turn off Dodge at 60th to drive in on the campus.
Already you're in trouble with the law.
But it was, no, that was legal then.
Was it?
Yeah. And there wasn't any turnoff. You just gutted it out.
Right.
But I drove up on the campus, and they were having spring football, and the campus is a beautiful spot. It was a beautiful spot.
Yes.
You remember the 2 lanes of trees that came out from the administration building?
Never forget them.
Beautiful linden trees.
All the way down to Dodge.
Yeah. And it was just such a contrast to the other. But it was really great. And then when I came, I got the reservation out at the townhouse. And the next morning then I went through all the offices of the deans. That was when the deans interviewed everybody.
Yeah.
All the deans.
Every dean.
Every dean. President, everybody interviewed everybody.
Charlie Hoff.
Yeah.
Someone like that.
Yeah. And Bill Thompson interviewed me, the dean of the Arts College.
Now this was up for a teaching job in the education.
Yeah,
college.
I was applying for the teaching of secondary education in the College of Education, and Dean Gorman was the dean of the college. And they didn't have a head of the secondary ed department, and the guy who had been named head of the department and promoted to associate prof the year before that I came, you see. And Dr. Bale said, we're not going to name any permanent department chairman, and we're certainly not going to give you any promotion. You know, and I said, you know, hell, I'll be happy to get the job. I'm not looking for a promotion.
Yeah.
But that's the way he was.
Right up front.
Oh, yeah. And so I went through and visited with all the people. And
what were some of your first impressions, other than that traffic on Dodge Street, of the university and its beauty that you mentioned?
Well, I think it was really a very pastoral scene when I came out on the west door of the administration building, and the women's athletic field was there, and there weren't any buildings west of there except the field house.
Right.
And
a lot of nice green.
Beautiful bowl, and it was really a very attractive physical spot. And those Norwegian pines on the east side of the campus, it looked like an oasis to me, being from western Kansas. You know, I thought, this is a great place.
2 or 3, 4 trees in the same place, pretty good.
And
it's still a pretty spot in 1984, isn't it?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, evidently you made a decision.
Oh, yeah. I was very eager to get the job after I made the application. And I remembered what Doc Twenty had said about his impression of the place, and from everything I could pick up, the university did have a tremendous potential, just no question about it. And Dr. Bale certainly had tremendous vision as to what the university could become, and Dean Gorman.
Sounds like they impressed you right away.
Oh, yeah. They were, in my opinion, very future-oriented. Now, we talk about future-oriented people now.
But we got a name for them now, futurists.
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. But unfortunately, this university, in my opinion, has been blessed with people who have had that. Dr. Jenkins, the original founder of the institution, certainly had vision.
Indeed.
And Dr. Bale could see the potential. As a matter of fact, he got more out of things than most people even thought could be, like space utilization and dollar usage and faculty energy.
Yes, he was very faculty-oriented, but he also knew how to work them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you and Martha and the boys came north.
We came north.
I imagine it was a bit of a change coming up from Kansas, wasn't it?
Big change, because we'd never lived in a town, you know, any bigger than Lawrence, Kansas, and Lawrence was 30,000 people, and that was a huge city for us.
So this was a biggie.
This was a biggie, and but we settled in over in the Benson area, and
where you still are today.
Where we still are today, and it's been a beautiful experience to be identified with the university. As I go around in the state, it's a real ego vitamin to be identified with the University of Nebraska.
And it wasn't always that way, so I think it's coming along real well. Came with a job to teach in the College of Education. What did you teach, and what was being offered then? What kinds of programs?
Well, the secondary education program was very limited in terms of the number of courses that were offered. We had student teaching, 2 semesters of that, and then we had a methods course of 2 hours, and then we had a 5-hour general methods course in teaching secondary schools. So there were about 15 hours of what you'd call secondary education, but there was 9 hours of general education in the field of education, of human growth and development, ed-psych, and introduction to education, so that a secondary education major had about 24 hours in the College of Education. And when I came, excuse me, there were about as many youngsters in this university who were in the colleges of arts and science or engineering or some other college and getting teacher certification as secondary teachers as there were in students in the College of Education.
Oh, so a lot of your majors, or the ones you worked with in secondary, then were majoring in other colleges and getting those 24 hours.
Yeah, they'd come over and take the 24 hours in education, and then they'd take the regular program as an English major or history major or industrial arts major.
Well, how would their diploma read then as they graduated?
Well, they graduated from that college.
Like a business college
like
major?
College of Business Administration. Marlene Hoffman was one of the early students with whom I worked in the field of business, and Ernestine Starks, another business major, and well, Don Myers, who is Dean of our College of Education at the present time, was in the College of Arts and Sciences. And we had an interesting experience right off the bat as to who was going to advise these students with regard to what courses they needed to take. And I went over and visited with all the chairmen of the departments in the other colleges. And Dr. Espinoza, I remember, the Spanish
I remember him, indeed.
Teacher, was head of the foreign language department, was very emphatic that...
You could hear him in Elkhorn.
he was very emphatic that he was going to tell them what Spanish to take, and I said I wasn't going to argue with him about that. That wasn't a question, but all the other courses and the responsibility for how good they were and that sort of thing. And Dr. Koch in art department,
yes.
She didn't think anybody could teach art if they hadn't had about 90 to 100 hours of art. And it was a great experience to come in, because there was, and I don't think it was because I was new to the college level, but they were very talented professors, Dr. Payne, Dr. Garlow. These profs had been with the institution for many, many years. Dr. Earl in mathematics department.
Right.
And they were truly great teachers. And Dean Thompson, the Dean of the Arts College at that time, was very concerned about the quality of teaching on the parts of arts and science people. And teaching was given a lot of credence with regard to the importance of the institution. And the thing that made the university run so well, I think, besides the teaching, was also a quality of women that we had who worked in the offices of the administrators.
Go ahead and mention some, because I think I know them all too. And you're right, we had some great women who held this place together in good measure.
Miss Sinnett was in Dean Thompson's office.
Gloria Sinnett.
Gloria ran College of Arts and Sciences. And as a matter of fact,
hard to hold registration without her.
As a matter of fact, I tried to pattern my deaning while I was dean of the College of Education after Dean Thompson, because I saw how well she had run the College of Arts and Sciences. And so while I was dean of the College of Education, Pearl Parsons practically ran the College of Education in the same way. And frankly, they had the talent to do that. Velma Titzel was a tremendous gal. Alice Smith was a registrar at that time. And
Hazel Spangler.
Hazel Spangler was in Dr. Bale's office. And Thelma Engel was a hostess for the university, and just tremendous people like that.
And
now,
key people to making this place, as you say, run nicely.
Yeah, and they did a great job, and made a lot of administrators look good.
Maybe some of the students from years past that are watching this tape can remember how great the food and service used to be, thanks to people like Thelma Engel and others.
Yeah, and Ernestine was over in the kitchen, and I realize that we are reminded frequently of the great progress that's been made, but there have been some signs of regression along with it. And one of them has been in the area of the faculty dining room, which now looks like Lewis and Clark multipurpose room, as far as I'm concerned.
And where did the butterscotch pie go?
Yes, and the tablecloth covers, and the captain's chairs made out of maple.
There were niceties that related to the faculty that sort of gone by the board, right?
That was before, I guess, we tried to become so democratized that everybody's the same and equal and all that sort of stuff. But the excitement of being at the university during that period of post-WW2 with a lot of returning veterans. Now, there were guys here who had been in the service, and they were in teacher education, and they weren't looking for any hokey-pokey, you know, guys like Hoot Gibson and Ed Baker and Simon.
Oh, great football player.
Yeah, and Pete Rigatuso.
Another one.
And Tom Harper. And Tannehill, Dick Tannehill.
Yes.
and the Rudy Rotella.
You got a great memory for
Well,
some of the people
I had
there.
that bunch of yaps in my classes, you know, and we got pretty well acquainted with each other. But they really did very well. Dick Cotton was in there, and well, Johanna, who was associate superintendent, went over to college in Lamona, Iowa, Graceland, and was president there for a while.
And now in '84 he's back with
yeah,
the
he's back
system.
with OPS, and Don Myers was in that group. But you see, we had only 28 student teachers that first year in secondary ed. So I did get better acquainted with them then, and it was possible to do that with smaller, but then the institution was growing very rapidly because of the GI Bill, and then Dr. Bale and LeMay, General LeMay, had worked out the bootstrap program, and I mean those two guys worked it out. It didn't take a committee.
No,
They
right,
just...
it was a committee of two.
Yes.
And what it was, for those that see this and say, hey, bootstrap program, what was that? Give a capsule of it by
Well,
definition.
these were these programs for bootstrappers were set up for those individuals who had not finished a baccalaureate degree.
They had about 18 hours left or so, didn't they?
Something like that. They were supposed to be within a 6-month period of being able to finish their degrees. And Dr. Bale and General LeMay worked out this program so that the guys could come back here in a summer and in a semester, or in a semester and a summer, they could finish up a degree. And that was run through primarily the College of Continuing Studies at that time. And tremendous people came through that program.
Oh, I agree.
Talented.
We never had more motivated students ever.
Well, they had a lot of pressure on them to do well.
Right. It meant something in their career.
Yeah, and some of our students didn't welcome that competition, but I think the highly motivated students welcomed them. They got along well.
I think it helped raise the level,
Oh,
the tone
yeah.
of the class.
Oh, yeah.
Generally, every time they
Yeah.
pull it up, as we say, by the bootstraps.
Yeah, and there's some of them
usually.
still around here that went through that program. Paco Gonzalez went through that program. He's with the Omaha Public Schools now. And these guys made tremendous contributions, not only to the classrooms in which they were studying and participating, but on campus life. They were involved in supporting the athletic programs. They were committed to the social programs on the campus, and they added a tremendous amount to the university. And the growth then from the baby boom over the years also contributed. And then, of course, in 1968, when the merger took place with the university, that's when the growth really came.
Yeah.
I had moved into the dean's office in 1967, the year before the merger, and it was pretty obvious how the university was really at a crossroads as to where they were going to go.
Yeah, I want to jump too far. You're way
Yeah.
up there now, Paul. And one thing that you said a little while ago that I thought was interesting. Well, in effect, when you started, you talked about the concentration and the use of other colleges for a secondary teacher. He majored in psych, he majored in this, and he took his 24 hours of teaching and practicum, whatever, with you. Sounded like you had a very small faculty at that time, too.
Yeah, we didn't have very many. I don't remember exactly how many there were in the College of Education, but I think there were 5 of us
In secondary?
in secondary ed at that time who taught in secondary ed.
And oversaw all the teachers out in the classroom,
and
too.
so and the student teaching.
Yeah.
And then we began to try to get individuals to teach in the methods in science, and we brought in people like Paul Ackerman and Dale Bunsen. And we wanted a specialist in mathematics, so Dr. Zebarth came in, and a specialist in English, and Dr. Bressler came in, and a specialist in history, and I don't remember, well, I guess I was a social studies person at that time, but this was in the early 60s. 64, Dr. Zebarth came. In foreign languages, Dr. Sadler came about 64.